the ANC has set up a task team to guide it on how best to implement the recommendations from the first of 3 reports that come from the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. The team will be led by ANC policy head Radebe, with the support from Ronald Lamola, Netshitenzhe, as well as Lindiwe Maseko, amongst other senior members. The ANC holding a national committee around this amid speculation that Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu will stand before the party's Integrity Committee following a fallout over her contentious opinion piece about the judiciary and the Constitution. Let's make sense of all of this for you now. Bring in political analyst, Professor Sipho Seepe, who joins us via our video link. And Prof, it's always great to see you. Thanks very much for making time. We're told that this task team is meant to draft proposals to give effect to the party's commitment to follow through on the recommendations from the Zondo inquiry. Are you expecting anything groundbreaking from this team?
No, not necessarily, but the position by the ANC is also a correct one. You cannot have a commission of inquiry that has cost R1 billion and have recommendations made, and then they move as if you're going to ignore that. So the party would actually look at it and say what processes in our space have led or contributed to what we call state capture. And one of the things that people have actually raised is the whole notion of a deployment committee, which people have, and also the DA has argued that that's a source of state capture and corruption within government, because the people who are employed or deployed in government tend to want to take orders from the people who have actually appointed them or deployed them. So that is one thing, and that will also be resisted because members of the ANC, in terms of their policies, that the cadre deployment is also critical in terms of the transformation of the state. But at the moment, that has been called into question by both the experience in government and the corruption, and also the report by the Deputy Chief Justice in terms of the state capture. So there will be resistance in terms of anything that suggests that the cadre deployment must be done away with. And already somebody like Gwede Mantashe, who's the chair of the ANC, has alluded to that recommendation as being unsavory and unfavorable.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think it was also Gwede Mantashe who said that the report shouldn't be used to weaponize members of the ANC against each other. And I guess with that in mind, when you look at some of the names involved in this particular task team, I mean, Ronald Lamola, Netshitenzhe, Lindiwe Maseko are just some of them that I mentioned. Are you getting a sense that this is a well-constituted, a team that's being well-constituted, because it is also widely known that there are factions within the ANC, and because of that, whatever this team recommends will be read through that lens?
Yeah, I think the appointment of those individuals can be almost supported. First, Jeff Radebe is the head of policy within the ANC. So any policy proposals will have to go through his space. So they are putting somebody who understands policy of the ANC and is a driver of the policy. And somebody like Netshitenzhe is also sort of credited, or suggestions are that he is the person behind the writing of the policy around the cadre deployment. So he's actually a right person to put there. And of course, you would not take away the Minister of Justice, because ultimately this was in his space. And Maseko also is a person with a good standing within the ANC. So I think from the perspective of the first 3, one cannot argue that they are a wrong appointment. Jeff is the head of policy. Joel is credited for having drafted the cadre deployment. And Ronald, you cannot ignore the role of the Minister of Justice in terms of this, because he is also going to be very much involved in carrying out what this means for government.
Yeah. The other risk, of course, is that the team could be put together and we could wait a very long time before anything substantial comes from it. If this intervention is to work, should it have timelines attached to it, do you think?
Well, it would have to tread carefully, and I don't think they're going to be rushing towards coming up with the timeline. Remember, the ANC is also faced with immediate challenges. At the moment, you have a member of Parliament who has been suspended by the ANC for suggesting that somebody like President Ramaphosa must be held to account for statements that he had made. That is actually serious when the president is summoned to appear before SCOPA on something that affects the ANC, which is the use of state resources to advance people's political campaigns. So the whole notion of state capture and corruption begins to rear its ugly head there. So you can have that trust him, but you have a material challenge that is actually facing the ANC in parliament. And also society is now saying, but the president not so long ago suggested that when something is wrong that's done, members of the ANC should not look the other way. They should confront it. Here you have Mervyn, who is a member of parliament, who has decided to follow what the president said, and then he gets suspended. So we are going through almost an elaboration of contradictions within the ANC, both in the party but also in parliament.
Of course, there's also, dare I say, the issue of Lindiwe Sisulu and the back and forth that she had with the presidency. We're now hearing that it appears the walls are beginning to close in on her within the NEC itself. Again, this is all being viewed in the context where we know we're leading up to December. But, I mean, from a political strategy point of view, do you think what Lindiwe Sisulu did, will be able to see her through till December?
Well, I mean, the biggest challenge that the ANC has to face is whether it's being consistent in the application of whatever it calls its own regulations. The notion of judges where sweeping statements are made against judges is something that the ANC has routinely made. Gwede again had also come into the picture to say, as far as he's concerned, as a chair of the ANC, he does not see that whatever she wrote and said had brought the ANC into disrepute. So you already have within the top six somebody who has spoken out. So this is not something that's going to be very easy. But also Gwede Mantashe in the past had also taken a swipe against the judges. So has the presidency under Mbeki, where they talked about the collective mindset of the judiciary. So although in that case they were not isolating black judges, but one can actually say the taking swipe at judges in this country is something that the ANC has actually done. So you could say Lindiwe Sisulu is simply repeating what many others have said before.
So what? Are you saying that the reaction against her is her being targeted, her being isolated intentionally?
Well, I think what is different is the statement around black judges being seen as undertones or house Negroes. But taking swipe at judges is something that the ANC has actually done. So if the ANC can separate the aspect of their house Negroes or Anglo-Toms, the statement that she has made is the statement that the ANC itself has made a number of times. To that extent, simply going for that will prove very difficult, and people will see it as simply somebody who's been targeted because the person has happened to raise a hand for a presidency of the ANC.
Professor Sipho Seepe is a political analyst. Sir, once again, thanks very much indeed for your time. Really do appreciate it.